Korea was not supposed to survive, not after being invaded, not after being colonized, not after being split in half, and not after losing millions during war. Most nations would have disappeared from history, but Korea didn't. It survived. And later, it transformed. Why this story matters. Today, people know Korea for technology, culture, and entertainment, but very few know how close Korea came to not existing at all. This is not a story about trends or pop culture. This is a story about survival against impossible odds, and how a small peninsula became one of the most dynamic countries in the modern world. Korea between giants. Korea sits between China and Japan. Geographically, it is a bridge. Strategically, it is a shield. Historically, it has always been vulnerable. Many societies caught between empires did not survive. Korea did. For centuries, the Joseon dynasty maintained order. It valued literacy, administration, and stability. It invested in astronomy, metalwork, printing, and agriculture. It was a cautious civilization, but caution could not stop what came next. The first shock. The Imjin War. In 1592, Japan invaded Korea. It was the largest military operation in East Asia at that time. Cities were burned, villages destroyed, civilians displaced. Korea was unprepared and overwhelmed. But the peninsula did not collapse. Admiral Yi Sun-sin changed everything. He was a naval commander who had been demoted and nearly executed by his own government. Yet he ignored politics and defended the country anyway. He disrupted Japanese supply lines at sea. Without supplies, the Japanese army could not advance. The invasion stalled and eventually retreated, but the damage was catastrophic. Korea needed decades to recover. The aftershock. The Manchu invasions. Before recovery was complete, another threat appeared in the north. The Manchus invaded Korea twice. This time, Korea had no capacity for prolonged war. It chose surrender over destruction. It was a painful decision, but it prevented total collapse. This choice would define Korea's survival strategy for centuries. Fight when possible. Endure when necessary. The Long Night. Imperial Japan. 200 years later, Japan returned, but this time as a modern imperial power. Korea was isolated and technologically behind. In 1910, the peninsula was annexed. For 35 years, Koreans lived under colonial rule. The Korean language was restricted in schools. Korean names were replaced. Resources were seized. Resistance was punished. Culture was suppressed. But Koreans did not give up. Independence movements formed inside and outside the peninsula. The March 1st movement in 1919 became a symbol of national resistance. Koreans refused to disappear quietly. Liberation and division. In 1945, Japan surrendered and Korea was liberated, but the celebration did not last. The peninsula was divided by foreign powers, 2 ideologies, 2 governments, 1 people. The division turned into a war that changed the peninsula forever, the Korean War. In 1950, the Korean War exploded. It was brutal. Millions died. Families were separated. Cities were burned to the ground. Seoul changed hands multiple times. By 1953, the war ended in ceasefire, not peace. The division was now permanent. It remains to this day. South Korea was left as one of the poorest countries on Earth. At the time, many experts believed it would never recover, and that it would forever remain dependent and unstable. But the experts were wrong. Economic takeoff. In the 1960s and 70s, South Korea began industrializing rapidly, not slowly, not gradually, but at unprecedented speed. Textiles came first, then steel, then shipbuilding, then electronics, then automobiles, and eventually semiconductors. Within 1 generation, South Korea moved from extreme poverty to high-income status. It became one of the few nations in history that transformed from aid recipient to aid donor. Education fueled this transformation. Families sacrificed. Students studied intensely, and the country pushed forward. Culture awakens. When the economy stabilized, culture followed. Korean cinema, music, fashion, and food spread globally. Today, millions consume Korean culture without knowing the history behind it. The K in K culture is not a trend. It is the result of survival and cultural confidence born from endurance. The modern paradox. South Korea now faces a new type of challenge. Not invasion, not colonization, but the weight of its own success. Low birth rates, high competition, work pressure, mental health strain. The next stage of survival will not be against foreign powers, but against internal pressures created by rapid modernization. What the world missed. To many foreigners, Korea is Samsung, or Hyundai, or K-pop, or K-dramas. But beneath these images lies a long survival arc that the world rarely sees. Every achievement had a cost. Every success had a sacrifice. Closing. Korea was not supposed to survive, but it did. And now, it does something even harder. It thrives. The story of Korea is not about perfection. It is about resilience. And resilience is the most underestimated force in history.